said, Mom, look at the kindness diaries on Netflix. It's right up your alley, he said. So I did watch the kindness diaries on Netflix, and it's about this fellow who is English, but he was living in Los Angeles, and he had a big stockbroker practice, and he was loaded and discovered that it was not anything that was satisfying to him. So he had this funny motorcycle with a sidecar, and he decided to travel the world with no money at all and live off of the kindness of strangers. And it's really a fascinating program. The other part of it is that as he's receiving kindness from strangers, some people that have given him food and a place to stay really needed resources of their own. So using his money that he's not traveling with, he sent a couple to England to be with at their son's wedding, and he sent, or he arranged for a homeless man who had shared everything he had with this fellow, a home and sending to school. So it's a really lovely show. But what I wanted to share with you is that he said that when you live from your heart, life is wonderful. And the way he said it in the text that he said it, when you live with in your heart, life is wonderful. That really struck me. So today, as I said, we're talking about listening with our hearts. And I just want to repeat a line that I heard a long time ago, and I don't know where, but it's so true, I believe. And that is, people are dying to be heard. People are dying to be heard. And in our society that's so rushed and so separated, there are so many people that are not being heard. And we know that when folks feel lonely and isolated, it has serious repercussions on their body. Their stress levels go up, and they have the hormones of stress are raised, and their blood pressure goes up, and their heart muscles are not working properly. Their sleep is not restorative. And this is what I found really fascinating and kind of scary. And that is that doctors reported that they didn't give the same level of attention to people who were not supported by their families or were unsupported. That just stunned me. So even their health care is compromised if they don't have community or if they feel isolated. You know, failure to thrive is a real problem for people who are not in community. So one of the greatest gifts that we can give one another is the gift of active listening, free from our projections and our judgments. Listening without judgment. My favorite, my near favorite, Edward Viljoen. Is that the way you say it? Viljoen. Speaks of listening generously. I love that term, listening generously. It's more than active listening or listening intently, he says. To listen generously evokes the image of dropping any desire to correct, teach, direct, hint, or advise. Let me say that again because it's so important, I believe. To listen generously invokes the image of dropping any desire to correct, teach, direct, hint, or advise. I can call to mind, he says, many times when I have been listened to generously and the feel of sanctuary, that experience was. Tidying up the way I've listened to people around me was a way of training myself to listen to myself and to the world of inspiration within. When we sit with people, I found this in my practice, both as a practitioner and as a drug counselor. When I sit in that place of listening generously, it is a feeling of sanctuary because it is a connection of God to God. It is truly the namaste. When I allow myself to let go of judgments and criticisms, to not correct people, not jump in to fill in the spaces, to allow silence, it is a sanctuary. It is a moment of godness, a holy, sacred moment. And people, I remind you, are dying to be heard. Generous listening is a way of participating with and being in service to the whole of life. It's the way energy flows back and forth between us to allow for open communication. Ken Newburn tells a story in his book, Make Me an Instrument of Your Peace, about a friend of his who's an actor. And Ken Newburn writes, he'd been a long-time student of the acting craft, someone who, with the movement of a hand or the subtlest of motivation and modulation of a voice, could create an entire world of meaning in a sense or in a character. On one occasion, the actor and Ken Newburn were sitting together, and Ken says, oh, I was discussing some issues which I thought had some deep insight. I was going on at great length about my thinking on the matter when suddenly I lost my train of thought. I looked at him sheepishly and said, I forgot what I was going to say. And the actor said, I know. It's because I wasn't listening. Wow, huh? I lost my train of thought. I know, because I wasn't listening. That is so powerful, I think. When we truly listen with our whole heart and our being, we're listening to the resonance of God that connects all life to the divine whole. So when we listen, we are connected to all of life and the divine whole. When we listen generously, we are truly living from that namaste place. We are acknowledging the God that is within all is also within me, and we're resonating from that place of sanctuary, that place of holiness. Mark Naples, my other favorite, Edward and Mark, I have spiritual crushes on. In his blog on September the 26th of 11, Mark Naples writes about those who have fallen through. And this is actually for you, BC Bud. Lynn Harley, an independent educator who lives in the wilds of the Yukon, tells the story of two skiers crossing a frozen lake at night. Sliding through the snow with flashlights, they come upon a moose fallen through the ice. The enormous creature was stuck shoulder high. It was clear the moose couldn't get out, and they alone could not pull it out. The temperature was dropping, so they stayed the night, and though the moose resisted, they covered it with their tents, settling in to shine their small lights on its face and on the edges of the broken ice to keep the ice from freezing into shards that would cut the moose. In the morning, when the sun reappeared, they went for help. And with help together, they roped the moose and slowly pulled it to the edge till it could find its own way out. Nepo says, this is a powerful metaphor for how to listen and to be with those who have fallen through. Sorry, what's wrong? More tears. For those who have fallen through, stay close and keep them warm, resisting the urge to prematurely solve the situation. If nothing can be done, sit with them and withstand the urge to abandon those who seem stuck. Offer your tent and stay till the way out presents itself, not forcing a rescue. He says, how I need to hear this, for life is long enough that we will have our not knowing what to do. We will have our not knowing what to do. Before that meeting, before I can encounter that not knowing, help me learn the skill of heart that lets love meet truth like small lights on ice. In the truth of each other, there is a way out. End of quote by Nepo. How many of you have wanted to talk, to be heard, and have been interrupted by those who are uncomfortable with what you have to say and redirect the conversation or rush to tell you how to solve your problem? When I want to be heard, when I want to be listened to generously, that's all I expect, is to be in the sanctuary presence of someone willing to listen. I'm not looking for solutions. I'm not looking for cures. I'm not looking for what to do or how to do it. I am looking for that sanctuary of generous listening. Carl Rogers tells the story of how he began his therapy practices. Some woman had come to him and had told him this horrendous story, and he was so stunned by her story that he could not think of a thing to say, and so he sat in the silence. He couldn't respond to her story. It was just overwhelming to him. And when she was through, she got up and she walked to the door and she said, "Thank you. You have been very helpful." And she left. And he realized that his helpfulness was only that space of silence that he had allowed her. And so Carl Rogers, one of our great, great psychiatrists, came to this philosophy of simply listening. Because we all have our own answers. The gift of listening generously is allowing others to listen to themselves. We know we have the answers, and when we have the space to express ourselves without judgment and without criticism, without correction, without somebody telling you, that's the wrong tense of the word, or this is how you pronounce that word, or jumping in to fill in the spaces of silence. We all know, we all have our connection to our deepest self of knowing. And in that generous listening, we are connected with our highest and best self. And we have all of the solutions that we need. People are dying to be heard. And to listen generously is the greatest gift that we can give. It doesn't cost us one thing. There's nothing that we have to do. There's no action that we have to take. In the silence of generous listening, people are healed. And they are healed because of that connection with Spirit that they are. So this week, as we prepare to move into a rich time of sanctuary, no matter how we were raised, this time is a holy, sacred time. I would invite you to heighten your experience of joy and love and connection through listening generously. Try listening this week with an intuitive voice of God speaking to you through all creations. Use listening generously as a practice to listen to yourself. Because as you allow others to connect to their higher self, you are practicing connecting to yourself. So here's an affirmation I want to share with you that was written by Reverend Michelle Ingalls of Centers for Spiritual Living in San Diego. She says, I hear Spirit's voice through my listening heart, and I answer through my compassionate action. Let me read it again. I hear Spirit's voice through my listening heart, and I answer through my compassionate action. So as you are in conversation this week, hold that concept of generous listening in your heart. Allow yourself the quiet stillness to be in sanctuary with those that you love. And I think so often what happens, especially with people that we love, is that we get in the habit of immediately knowing the rest of the story, maybe correcting them, maybe filling in the space. So as you interact with the people that you love this week, practice the silence. Practice allowing. Practice listening with a generous heart. It's easy to be with strangers. It's much more difficult to be with those that we're intimate with. It's much more difficult to allow that generous listening with people that we think we know what they're going to say. We think we know what their intended words might be. So practice listening to those that you are very close to. Practice listening to your intimate relationships with a generous heart, and practice generous listening. As I said earlier, I love each one of you so much. You're such a gift. And I wish you a blessed week. Namaste.
Namaste.
If it feels comfortable for you, permit yourself to turn within. To turn within to that space in your heart that is actually the most important and vital organ for listening. Listening with our ears is superficial, surface listening. Listening with our heart is the true, generous listening. I turn within to that place that is truly the Namaste. That place where the God in me connects with the God in you. That place where I know the truth of what you're saying. The place where I know the truth that God is shining through. From this sacred place of my heart listening, I turn aside from all judgments and all criticisms, all ideas of what I think should be, and I settle into the what is, the divine expression of goodness and love and peace. And I recognize that when I live from my heart, all life is glorified. I joyfully know that despite any outside appearances, all is well, all is in divine right order. God, that divine energy, creative energy that is all there is, totally is circulating through, when, around, and about all things. In the sanctuary of the silence, I trust that good is unfolding. And I am so grateful for that. I hold in my heart with blessings all of those that are not with us presently. Knowing that in the deep silence, they are aware of the love and the peace and the harmony that they are being surrounded by. And so with gratitude, with joy, with raucous enthusiasm, I get myself out of the way, trusting fully, knowing that all things are unfolding miraculously with good. And I claim that for each one of us. And I celebrate it now by saying, and so it is.